we got the playoffs, and what better way to go into the playoffs than doing a little bit of tier list action and ranking sort of every single team that's going to be competing for that Super Bowl, because there's only 14 teams left. We have the tier list in front of us. We've got 5 different categories where we will be slotting these teams in. We got Super Bowl favorites. I think we've sort of agreed we're just going to put 2 teams in there, one from the AFC, one from the NFC. We got the next best. It's kind of like your next best crop that can really push those favorites. We got the eye emojis. Teams that they aren't really underdogs. They aren't really heavyweights, but they can just make some noise. They got some good rosters. Teams that could pull in upsets, those are sort of your underdogs. And then the tough tier at the bottom there is just no chance. So we'll hop right into it.
I think it's fitting that the no chance tier in the first team we're ranking here is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm gonna toss them in no chance. We'll go one by one on this, so I'll start us off with putting the Pittsburgh Steelers in no chance. And look, I'm not saying that they have no chance to pull off an upset against the Buffalo Bills, because we're already talking about the weather in that game not being great, and Josh Allen is absolutely erratic, and Mike Tomlin just knows how to coach in any situation. Like, the man hasn't had a losing season, and his teams play extremely hard. Like, this is not going to be a pushover, walkover team for the Bills to just kind of have it easy on Sunday. But I will say, when you're starting Mason Rudolph, when you've been as inconsistent as the Steelers have been on offense, and then you lose TJ Watt, arguably the defensive player of the year. He's led the league in sacks in 3 seasons, which is nuts. That is a tough loss to overcome for any team, let alone going against the 2 seed on the road. So I just think there's too much going on in Pittsburgh. Even if they do win this game, they have no shot against whoever they play next.
I'm not going to give you any pushback there. I think it's a nice story that they got in. It's crazy that they got in, considering they lost games to the Cardinals and the Patriots in like the span of 6 days. And the reason I'll say this, and I won't feel bad saying this, is because Pittsburgh is such a storied franchise. Their fans have seen them win, and do nothing but win every single year, and they've won a ton of Super Bowls. The Steelers are the worst team to be in the playoffs since the Steelers last made the playoffs. They got no chance. They got no chance. Rightfully so. We'll see what the weather has in store for us in Buffalo.
Oh my God.
But
it's going to be a 17-13 Steelers win. Somehow.
You never know, but for now, we are lowest on the Steelers as we are on any of the playoff teams. We'll go over to Green Bay next, and I guess it's my turn. I'm gonna throw them in here into could pull off an upset. Jordan Love has been phenomenal down the stretch. 6-2 in his last 8, 18 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. Talk about playing your best football at the right time, which every year in the NFL we see is the most important things for teams to do. He had some growing pains early in the year. They've trusted him. This young core has grown together. This is one of the youngest teams to ever play in the playoffs. So if you're a Packers fan, it's like, are you kidding me? You go from Favre to Rodgers, and now to a guy that first season as a starter. He's second in the league in passing touchdowns. He's had one of the best stretches that any quarterback's had this season. Listen, the Packers, they're young. Maybe they're not ready to compete with the big boys, but they can definitely pull off an upset.
Absolutely. And then when you talk about Jordan Love, too, what he's done this year, over 4,000 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, only been done by 2 other players in their rookie season, so to speak, and that's Kurt Warner and Patrick Mahomes. So it's like elite company for this guy. The young players have all stepped up. Like, I love Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave. Like, the fact that this offense is so young and they are so well coached and doing this, and Love is in complete command, giving people flashbacks of Favre and Rodgers with the stuff that he can do, the throws off of 1 foot and the arm angles. Like, it's awesome to see. Their defense is a work in progress for sure. But this game is great because I think Cowboys fans have nightmares from playing against Rodgers in the playoffs, and Green Bay going into Dallas recently has just been nightmare fuel for Cowboys fans. And then you've got McCarthy facing his old team. Matt LaFleur is a great coach, and especially when it comes to December and January football. So, man, they are in the appropriate spot, but we've been high and hyped on Jordan Love since the beginning of the season. I think we both said the Packers were going to not only make the playoffs, I think we may have said they might win the division, but They came close. They made some noise, but they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we picked them because we were such big believers in Jordan Love. So happy to see that he's doing so well, and I agree with the spot completely. The team that they lost to in the division race, the Detroit Lions, this is a tough one. I'm going to put them in the eye emoji and not next best just because, and I think their defense is not the best, and eventually they're going to have to go on the road. Probably going to have to go on the road, and Jared Goff and company, when they're outside of a dome, they are just a completely different offense. And I don't know what that is and if there's any kind of credence to that, but when they're playing at home, when they're playing in a dome, they are pretty damn solid, and they probably should have won that Dallas game, and seeding might be a little different had they won that game. But going up against a Rams team that can score some points, and I feel like that's the biggest kind of conversation in this is Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff revenge games for each other, but probably more so Jared Goff because they sent him to Detroit to just middle out, and he's proven everyone wrong. He's proven everyone very capable of running this offense. So there's no reason why Detroit can't make a ton of noise, and you could argue them for next best as well, but I'm just going to stick them in a tier below some of those other teams we'll talk about.
I think you could argue them for next best, but like I said, or like you were talking about, the defense leaves a little bit to be desired. They don't have the playoff experience that some of these other teams have, and I don't know, we'll get to the Rams in a second, but Matthew Stafford coming into his old stomping grounds kind of scares me a little bit.
I agree.
And I know Jared Goff has been so good, and if you look at the two, I mean, if you put their numbers side by side, Jared Goff probably has put together the better regular season, but I still have more confidence in a guy like Matthew Stafford who's sort of been there, done that. He's won a Super Bowl. He's got that experience under his belt. This is, for me, maybe the most intriguing game of the entire weekend because it feels more of a toss-up of any.
You're up next, Kansas City. They're playing your Dolphins, so I don't know where you want to put them. It's been a weird year for the Chiefs.
Listen, they're the defending champs, but there's been times this year where they've just looked so bad. But with that, because Patrick Mahomes is back there, part of me is like, are we really going to be surprised when they win the Super Bowl in February? But also a part of me has just watched them at times and be like, this team is beyond fixing, and they've so many errors that they need a full offseason to sort of carve out and retool their team to be back at the top. This might come as a surprise. I'm going to put them here for now.
I like it.
And I think they have the biggest ceiling by far of maybe any team in the whole playoff. All right, you ranked the Lions. Now you got to go out and rank the team that they're playing against, the LA Rams. Not too long ago, this team won a Super Bowl. It looked like they were set to go a massive rebuild, and here they are already back in the playoffs.
Crazy. So, no one thought this.
Yeah.
I'm going to put them and could pull off an upset just because I'd love to put them in eye emoji, but I think it would be more a could pull off an upset because they still, I think, are viewed by a lot of people as the underdog going into this game. I think, like you said, might be more of a toss-up than people are giving it credit for because Stafford is really good and that defense a little underrated as well. Raheem Morris is still there.
I like it, and I think I'm ready to put a team up into one of the top two categories. That's the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to throw them into next best. And we all know the story with the Cowboys. Every year it's all this promise, and it feels like they just can't get it done when it counts the most in the playoffs. Does this feel different? I'll say this. The team looks as good as I've probably ever seen in my lifetime for a Dallas Cowboys team. Dak Prescott leads the league in passing touchdowns. A year after, he led the league in interceptions. He told everyone he was going to tone those down this year, and he did that. CeeDee Lamb, you can argue he's the best wide receiver in football right now. They got one of the best guys on defense in Micah Parsons. They got a secondary full of ball hawks. So the Cowboys have all the ingredients. It's just a matter of can they get it done against the best of the best. I haven't seen that yet. Hence, they are going into the next best category.
I think it's appropriate. I wonder if they would have ended up in the 5 seed instead of the Eagles and lost the division if we would be talking about them in the same way. Just because of the home and road splits, it's been something to kind of keep an eye on. Dak at home has been outstanding, and then on the road, he's looked like maybe more of that quarterback we saw last year. They're going to have to go through San Francisco if they probably want to win a Super Bowl here. So those demons will be calling, and we'll see if that matchup materializes because it would be a great matchup and a great rematch. I bet a lot closer than what we saw in the regular season. But yeah, they have talent everywhere, and I think this team a little banged up on the offensive line, but Dak is just in complete control like I don't think we've ever seen him. And ever since CeeDee Lamb, after that 49ers game, went into Mike McCarthy's offense and said, no disrespect, but like give me the ball a little more, they have been a completely different offense, and it's opened up everyone else on that offense too, with like Brandon Cooks having a pretty solid year, and Jake Ferguson having a solid year at tight end as well. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I don't want to give them a no chance. They're technically, it would be an upset, I think, if they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, despite the tailspin that Philly's been in the last month and a half. I still think it's considered an upset because you saw it this past week. They barely scratched by Carolina.
I'm not going to really fight you too much on this. Do I think they have a chance to win the Super Bowl? No. But the Eagles have just been so bad as of late.
Here, we've got 7 teams left. Notice no one in Super Bowl favorites yet. Only one in the next best. So we've got some heavy hitters coming. Let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles. Where would you like to place this inconsistent Philly team that was once undefeated and now just can't buy a win?
I was gonna say no one in Super Bowl favorites left. No one in Super Bowl favorites yet. If you asked me this 6 weeks ago, they might have been in there. They were 10-1. They were the team that had a undefeated record for the longest this season, but the wheels have just fallen off the bus for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm gonna throw them into the eye emoji because I think they are exactly that. You need to look out for them, good or bad. They're a bit of a mystery at this point, but at their best, I feel that they can still compete with your Dallases and maybe even your San Frans of the NFC because they have the talent and the roster. It's just down to execution at this point.
We'll see with them. The Cleveland Browns next. Oh my gosh. It's tough because I'm going to put them in could pull off an upset. And the reason why they're not an eye emoji is because what I've seen from Joe Flacco is fool's gold to me, and I don't believe it. And yes, he's been doing this. It's not like he did it for 2 games in a row. He's done it for a few more games than that, but it's still fool's gold to me.
It's one thing if Drew Brees got off of his couch or Tom Brady, or Peyton Manning came in and was just like, oh yeah, turn back the clock, doing what I was doing in my prime. Joe Flacco, the level that he's playing at right now, he has never played this well in his career. Maybe you can argue the year that they won the Super Bowl.
He played that well that one time. Maybe he's got one more run in him.
We got my Dolphins.
You're down on them. From talks with you, you are down on your Dolphins.
I'm gonna go like this, and then I'm gonna talk for a little bit, and then maybe I'll move them. But right now, they're in no chance because I'll say one thing about this team: the Dolphins have had so many chances this year to prove to the world that they can get it done on 1, the big stage, and on 2, against teams with winning records. And guess what? In the playoffs, you only play teams with winning records. Each and every single time, they have failed, and they have failed miserably. So part of me says you deserve to be in no chance with how you've looked all season against the best competition. But playoffs, every team starts off with the same record, 0-0. It's a fresh start. Tua has never, ever played a playoff game. I'll say what I said about the Chiefs, and I think I can say that in a similar breath with the Dolphins. At their best, they can beat anyone. It's just a matter of can they find it within themselves to get there. This team beats themselves. So, Tua, it's your first playoff game. Let's see what you got. I'm going to give this team a fresh start. We'll put them in sort of the teams to watch category.
And I've got my eyes on them. I've also got my eyes on the Houston Texans. I'm going to go could pull off an upset. It's weird to see the teams playing against each other both in that category, but I think like you said before with the Browns, this is more of whoever wins that game could make it tough for whoever they play. And CJ Stroud, that's who it's all about with this Houston Texans team. He just seems to step up in the biggest moments. He's playing in his second primetime game, I guess now. It's a home playoff game for the Houston Texans. If you would have asked any Texans fan before the season if that was even remotely a possibility with a first-year head coach, first-year quarterback, they would have said no chance in hell. So this team is very capable of pulling off an upset, and I give a ton of credit to DeMeco Ryans for that as well. He instills faith in me that if they win against the Browns, whoever they face, they are not in for an easy game.
We'll move on to the San Francisco 49ers, and they're the only team left in the NFC, which means that we both kind of feel they're the Super Bowl favorites from that conference. I have been consistent with this. I think when The 49ers are clicking. There is absolutely no stopping them. And I know they got absolutely humbled against the Baltimore Ravens, and we'll talk about that team in a little bit. But Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, Brand, like, pick your poison. And the defense is pretty good too. So I'm all in on the 49ers. I think if we're not seeing them play in Vegas come February, it is going to be a big surprise because this team is just unstoppable. And they have so much talent.
Buffalo Bills are next. They're the next best for me in the AFC. I don't know. When you have Josh Allen, he's had so many touchdowns this season as far as total touchdowns go. He led the league. He's a great quarterback. Yes, does he make some weird and wild plays? Of course he does, but it's part of the reason why he's who he is, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league because he's the only one that can do that kind of stuff and lead you to wins that way. So
we'll finish with the Baltimore Ravens, and I mean it's no secret where they're going. Similar to San Fran in the sense that when they play teams with good records and when they play teams that are viewed as their direct competition in their conference, they absolutely blow them out. And not just in their conference. They blew out San Fran. They blew out the Lions. They blew out the Seahawks. The Dolphins a couple weeks ago may have just completely derailed their season with how badly they beat them. Lamar Jackson, like, talk about the season that this guy has had. It is incredible, and what might even be more impressive to me is their defense.
They've got the MVP playing at the best level since his last MVP. I don't know if, like, we want to do Super Bowl picks here, like matchup, and then who you think is going to win it.
Well, I think with the two teams we have there, they're playing in a nice brand new dome. The only conversation is, will the lights turn out this Super Bowl?
Whoa!
Because it's looking like a rematch of the 49ers and the Ravens. And, I mean, we had the 2 1 seeds meet last year. I don't know if it's a boring pick, but do I really have it in me to say that the Cowboys are going to go into San Fran and win? I don't think so. Do I really have it in me to say that the Bills, as inconsistent that they're going to be, are going to go into Baltimore and win? I don't know. I find that hard. I feel like if these 1 seeds aren't going to be in the Super Bowl, they're going to get bounced. They're going to be one and done. Like, I feel like that's what it's going to take.
Interesting. I like it. I you know what? I'm going to pick the same matchup too because I just think both teams are so much more talented than anyone else that I'm looking at on this list. I'm just like, I know the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and the Bills have Josh Allen, but like the Ravens have Lamar Jackson plus one of the best defenses we've seen in the last 20 years.
But yeah, there you have it. Our tier list, all 14 teams ranked heading into the playoffs. It's going to be a great month and a bit of football, and you can catch all this action on TSN. I can't wait.
Can't wait either. And we're going to be coming at you a little more frequently. I think we're going to do every week leading up to the Super Bowl, and then after the Super Bowl, definitely a recap show. Definitely some draft stuff, some CFL free agency as well. There's a lot of things on the football calendar to tune into after that we are going to be talking about and discussing and dissecting. So that's what we've got coming up.
Thanks for sticking with us, and we will see you next week.